say yes to things. And like, if it scares you, or if it's like uncertain, or seems, you're makes you kind of, your adrenaline pump, like, do it. Just go. And because you never know. And you never know until you try. And it's like, if you never do it, you're never gonna know if you're gonna enjoy it or not,
Welcome back to another episode of Struggle Creates Strength. Struggle Creates Strength is a mental health platform and podcast exemplifying that everyone has a story. I always say that no two stories are the same, but every story has the potential to help someone else. Now, in today's episode, I was fortunate enough to actually sit down with Devan Head. And if you don't know who that is, he is actually a photographer based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, but he also has family, and I actually know his family. It was such a small world, but a great way for us to connect, and just being able to sit down with him, learn more about his story, his values in life, what he really practices and preaches on an everyday basis was incredible. And he has such an amazing story. And one of the biggest takeaways that I took from him, and that I still take from him, because we've actually formed a really cool, awesome relationship. And one of the biggest things that I learned from him, though, is that nothing ever has to be permanent. We don't ever have to look at anything as permanent. We can fall in love with something, and it can be great and fine and dandy, and then maybe in a week, a year, 2 years, 5 years, we might decide to do something different. And that's totally okay, as long as we are always open-minded and we go into life with no real form of expectation, but rather just chasing our happiness and making sure that we're always happy ourselves. Then that's what's important. And Devan has so many amazing things that you need to listen to, that everyone should listen to, honestly. And I'm just excited to bring it to all of you. Excited that I get, basically blessed that I get to sit down with him in this episode and in everyday life, and just sit with him, talk with him, just learn more about him. He's a very amazing human being who, again, is just such a kind-hearted person. Like, I can't preach that enough. Devan, I know you're listening to this, and I cannot preach it enough how amazing of a person you truly are. And again, I'm just so blessed to have sat down with you, and to have sat down and really just learnt your story. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate every last person that's going to listen to this episode. And I highly encourage you share it around, because Devan's story is one that everyone needs to hear. But with that being said, let's jump into this episode with Devan. Okay, well, honestly, thank you for obviously joining me, coming down, being a part of my podcast, and obviously advocating mental health, and just by sharing your story, and by being a person that's obviously possessing a sense of vulnerability, but also even more so just like a sense of strength. And you've obviously shown that through the social media, and I think that's how we've kind of connected, and where I really obviously, like I said, when I really got drawn in and was like, we need to film a podcast together because of everything that you're doing, and the type of person you are. And I, again, just like, thank you so much for coming here today and joining me.
Man, thank you. I'm stoked that like we could do it so like not last minute, but like quickly. Like, we want to be on the podcast. I'll be there in 2 days. Let's do it. Like, it was just, it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
I'm stoked.
Exactly.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, like literally 2 days. And you just kind of line it up and make it work. And I think that's honestly, again, why for me it's so cool, is because it aligns with what I always kind of talk about, and how these podcasts are seriously just, it's like a story, and there's no structure, there's nothing that goes into it. It's just like us sitting down and talking and having a real conversation, and a conversation that we just get to let other people in on. And
for sure.
And I get to hear, like, for me, why I always get so giddy about it is because I'm like, I get to hear your story firsthand, and hear you dive into the depths. And obviously I'm fortunate that I get to share it with other people. But for me, I feel most fortunate just because I get to hear you and hear everything that basically how you're here today, like what led up to this moment, which is
sure.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked for the same. Like, I never told you this yet, but because obviously we just met, and I just found out about this like just the other day, and so last night after we were like, all right, I'll be there at whatever 3. Last night I got home and I sat down and I was like, I'm gonna listen to some of the podcasts so that because I haven't yet because I just found out about it. So I went and I listened to the first one where you're talking about all of your stuff. And I sat there, it was like almost 3 hours. I sat there yesterday, just like in my room, just listened to the whole thing for like 3 hours. And,
Oh my God.
Yeah. And, or however long it was, probably close to that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, it's like, you're going to hear stuff today, and I heard everything last night. So it's very fresh and that's rad. And I mean, your story's amazing. And it's great that you're still here because you're able to turn it into something positive and help people and like you said in there, like there's a lot that you still have to do, and I think that that's rad, and you're gonna do lots of rad stuff. I can just tell, I know it, and so I'm just happy that I get to like get in here when I can, and now I get to see everything from like today onwards that you accomplish, and that's pretty. I almost swore. Can I swear on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dude, free reign. Like say whatever you want.
I was like, oh shit. I don't know. It's pretty fucking cool, man. I'm stoked.
No, I really appreciate that, and honestly, even just like I don't think you understand like how much that means to me that you obviously took the time out of your day to listen to my story, especially like that. To me, that's really special, and like from day one, I was always like, yeah, you know what? Like I share my story, and that's one thing, but. I get to just share a lot of other people's stories, and that's what, like to me, for you to say that you actually went back and like listened to mine, obviously it's cool because now, like you said, you have a better understanding of what I like, where I once was, or what I kind of went through in my past, and obviously today get to hear your story and hear how you got here, and I think I think it's just going to be a very fresh and real podcast where I think I know actually I'm not gonna say I think I know that you're gonna say a lot of stuff that I relate to so much. Cool. And but honestly, like my first question overall is like I just want to get a better understanding of like who you are, and I think everybody else should as well, because obviously like you're a very creative person. Thanks, and you're very much, and like this is in the best way possible, like you're very much so your own person, which I envy so much. And
thank you.
I think it's just from an outsider's perspective, it's like again very envious, and like who are you, and give us a bit of an insight on you.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's nice, man. Thank you. I tried to like be, myself and unique. So the fact that you noticed that is cool. So thank you. But so I grew up in like a small town. Well, until I was like 15, I lived there in Houston near Prince George. And I've had 4 heart surgeries. I was like born with a thing. And so I have an artificial pulmonary artery. The wall in between the 2 valves is artificial. There's like there's like a few like other little, nuts and screws, just little things in there that are. And so anyways, I've had 4 like open heart. 3 open heart. One was when I was like too little to do open heart, so they went through my side and kind of around the back and went in there. But so I've had that. I played hockey for like until I was probably 18. When I moved to Vancouver, I stopped. I played 1 year of like beer league, and I was like not really feeling it anymore. But when I played in Houston, there was only one. It was small, so there was only one team. But we went, and you went to winter games, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, but then I realized you said Prince George. We went when it was in 100 Mile, probably like years before you, because I feel like I'm like probably a few years older than you. But anyways, we went to the BC Winter Games there and stuff. So like when you were talking about all the hockey stuff that you did, it was just made me like, it brought me back to like thinking about when I used to play and like love it and take it seriously and do all of that. And so yeah, I did that until I was like 18, but we moved to Vernon when I was 15, and I only lived there for 3 years. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I moved to Vancouver. And then I've been there since. So I've been in Vancouver for, actually it just hit 10 years.
Wow.
Like a couple months ago. I moved there originally because in high school, so I started making music like just by like fluke. One time, like somebody broke into our house and I wrote a rap verse about it. I don't know why. Like the most random shit ever, but I did it. And then after that, I just like was like, I want to be a rapper. And then I was garbage at the beginning, and absolutely horrible. Not sure like what I was thinking, what people were thinking buying my CDs. I don't know. And so anyways, I moved to Vancouver to go to the Art Institute for audio engineering. And I did that for like 7 months, and I was like, I'm not really feeling this. Not the music, but just the audio engineering itself. And I was like, I don't want to spend more money on this schooling if I'm not even enjoying it. So I dropped out of it. And then I just probably from, that was in like 2012. So probably from 2012 until, when did I stop? I stopped making music like in 2018. So for those like 6 years, I just like worked random weird jobs and just did music. And I did like, put a bunch of albums out, went on tour a few times, traveled like further away and stuff to play shows and whatnot. And just sort of did a lot of that and really like put myself into that scene. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff and like meet a lot of really cool people and like make songs with people that I was like a fan of, which was really cool. So as far as like the music stuff goes, it ended up, you know, in the later years of it, like actually being great. And I got to experience a lot of amazing things and do a lot of amazing things. And then it kind of just hit a point where it was weird. Like I went through a pretty tough breakup in first week of 2018. And I had been with that person for almost 5 years, so it like really messed me up. And for some reason when that happened, I don't know why even still, for some reason when that happened, I was just like, I don't really want to make music anymore. And then I just stopped making music. So I'm not sure why, but like for some reason that sparked that. But at the time I was just starting to get into, I had been doing photography just for fun for a few years. And when all that happened, I was sort of just starting to get into like people actually paying me money to take their picture. So it was kind of like a seamless transition. I sort of like just stopped music and just sort of went down the photography route. And the photography route has been, in 3 years of doing it like professionally, miles beyond music as far in terms of like opportunity and people I've met and just the way that life has sort of gone. With music, it was very slow moving and very, you know, felt very stagnant at times, but photography has consistently been like just crazy, like nonstop for 3 years. So it's really interesting how that works. So like part of me, you know, I miss making music because it was fun, but at the same time I'm like, if I had never stopped like and fully dove into photography, who knows if I would even be sitting here right now, you know, like what would I be doing? So it's kind of interesting to think about that. But yeah, so then that was that past 3 years and now I'm here. So it's just a lot of experimenting with different arts and things that I want to try doing and that sort of thing.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, like one of the best things for me, like when I hear that is I think even just in like today's day and age, you know, and everybody, like I think that's the thing that I have grasped so much from that story is you're like, yeah, I was just doing like weird different jobs and just like following my passions. And I think, again, that's why you are like such an envious person, is because you've just like followed your passions. And it's like you, and I don't, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like I don't know, like, but like it almost seemed like you weren't overly attached to a thing. It's like, this is what I'm doing and it's amazing and I love it, but it's like, you know what, tomorrow something could change, and it's like, I'm just gonna like kind of like go with that and go with the flow, you know. And it's not in like a bad way at all. It's just like, again, it's very envious, because it's like, obviously it's all worked out and now you're jumped into the photography, and it's amazing to see the work that you do. And
thanks, man.
And you're not just a man of one trait, it's like a man of many traits. And I think, like, one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what were like some of the things that you almost learned from being like out on the road and like on tour, and obviously meeting all those people? Like, was there ever anything that obviously like really taught you some of those life lessons, or like some life lessons?
Yeah, so the tours that we did were pretty small, but it was cool to, like, I think the coolest part of it, I was so wrapped up in like, wow, we're in this other town or city where I don't have any friends here, and there's people there listening to whatever the fuck we're saying or rapping about. Like, that for me was crazy. It more so taught me like how connected the world really is without maybe us realizing it all the time. And it's like, you know, you could go to, for both of the tours, we played very like smaller, intimate sort of venues. One of them was like an acoustic one where my friend and I, we brought these chairs that my ex and I painted. We splashed like different color paint on them. They were like these old wooden chairs off like the marketplace. And we splashed a bunch of paint on them. And my friend Eric and I went on this tour, and the whole thing was acoustic. So we just sat there with his guitar and microphones, and that was it. And we sat on those chairs every show. And after the show, we told the crowd, like, if you want to come up, we have these markers, come write your name and the city you're from on the chair. Cool. So I noticed, like, when people came and did that, there would be people, like, we'd be in Nanaimo and people would be writing cities that weren't Nanaimo. And it just made me think, like, how, just about how, like, connected the world really is. And we don't even realize it usually because it's not really something you think about a lot. But, and it comes back to this, like, the small world thing, like how you've been like best friends with my cousin, my sister knows you, my dad knew who you were, like all this stuff, and we like just met. And it's like, you know, it's just weird, like how you're just so close to everybody without even realizing it. Yeah. And I think that is probably the biggest thing. The coolest thing that I did was when I went to, there's a indigenous reserve in Manitoba that, this is again with the small world thing. I went, I can't remember how it happened, but somehow it happened where it's super isolated. It's called St. Teresa Point, super isolated. And somehow it happened where somebody there caught wind of my music. I was in Vancouver at the time. And this is like this isolated reserve in the middle of nowhere in Manitoba. And not in the middle of nowhere, but just away from Western civilization. They're just kind of, you know, out and they're doing their thing. And so they're just there, and somebody found my music because of the internet probably. And so they got me to come over there. So I flew there, and there's like no cell service, like no, like they have one store, and it's like this like local grocery store that they have that everything has to get like flown in from Winnipeg and wherever else. And anyways, it's a very isolated lifestyle. It's an absolutely beautiful place. The people there are incredible. But anyways, I went there once, twice, 3 times. And I think it was the second time I went there that I was there, and I can't remember how I discovered it, but I think it's my great grandmother who, or had lived there for a while. My grandpa's mom, I think. Yeah, my grandpa's mom or my grandpa's grandma. I can't remember, one of the two. Had lived there for a while, obviously like 100 years ago or something. And I was like, what are the chances? Like, I go to this really random place that I had never heard of until they, contacted me to play this show for the youth there and stuff. They have a very bad, or very, very high suicide rate there for the youth. Probably because it's so isolated and, there's a lot of issues in isolated Indigenous communities. And so they wanted to bring, people to come perform and do stuff for the youth. So I flew out and played a show for the kids. And anyways, it's just like, what are the chances that, like, A, I get that opportunity in the first place to do something so amazing like that, but B, that I have family ties to this random place that randomly contacted me. It's just stuff like that where I'm just like, man, the world is it's so small. And like the universe just works in ways where it's like, it brings opportunities or people, into your life, and there's always just something amazing about every single piece of that. And so I think those are probably like that is probably the biggest thing that I like realized from just traveling around doing stuff like that, and just like how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. No, definitely. I honestly, it's so true though. And what I was thinking about, even just like you said, with our paths crossing, it's like, what are the chances that they didn't cross before?
Yeah.
And what I always think about with like any person that I cross paths with, especially when we kind of, in some sense, like are like so close, or like for the majority of our lives have been so close to like crossing paths, and it's like, why did it take this amount of time, or like why now?
Yeah.
And they're all like, I always think that there is a reason behind it. And like, for instance, us crossing paths, it's like, this was the reason. Like for me anyways, I'm like, this is the reason, like I obviously, like, you connected with me, I connected with you, and obviously we were both drawn into each other's like videos and even just like morals. And it's like, what are the odds that like this is the time that we cross paths, or that like you saw my stuff and I saw your stuff? Like, what are the odds? And because it's like, we easily could have seen it
so many times,
like so many times,
so many times. And it's crazy because we probably have either heard of each other just in random passing, like somebody just saying the name or something, because we just are so closely like connected, and we just maybe didn't realize it or whatever until now. And I think that's just cool. And I just think like, the way that it works, where like you get brought in at the right time, and for the right reasons, and I think that's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. It's like, obviously massive photographer. And
thanks.
How like that whole entire journey, like obviously, like I want to jump into you and your story, and obviously tie into all the mental health stuff. But me personally, I know when we were just sitting here talking before, I was like, I have just like questions to ask about the photography, and I'm not gonna ask you about the settings of your camera and how you take each individual shot, but just like that whole process of it, and like how, like for you, like you said, it was kind of a seamless transition. But did you ever find yourself like in the state of questioning, like, is this what I should be doing? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? Or like, how's that process been for you?
All the time. Even now. Like, I'm like, I know I definitely want to be like, making photos for probably ever. But I think about it as like career-wise. I'm like, is this what I should be doing? But then I think at the same time, I'm like, well, what else would I do? And at the moment, there's not really anything else. Like, I would like to work some sort of like social work or something with Indigenous youth specifically. But I think about that and I circle back and I'm like, well, why can't I just do that with photography? Like, I could tie it in. I could, do like photojournalism type stuff where I'm educating people about these issues that people are facing and things that people are going through, and do all of that, and that's how I could help. and sort of bring more awareness to it and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think about it all the time, and I question it like all the time. And but then I always come back to it, and I'm always like, no, I think this is it, at least for now. And but like you were saying, like sometimes you never know, like maybe something will just come up, and you'll be like, oh, that feels right.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. It's like I'm always open to like opportunities or like different ideas and whatnot. But I know definitely, like I've never enjoyed doing something as much as I enjoy doing photography. So I'm just kind of running with that for now.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I know, honestly, just with that and with all like entrepreneurs or the people that have escaped like the 9 to 5, I think that again is something of why like so many people do it, is because obviously like it gives you that sense of freedom, right? Like that's what everyone talks about. But I think even more so, like just from hearing you, it's like I think the way that we should all do it is like if something doesn't bring you happiness and joy, then you're not stuck in it, And I think that's why when you do escape that 9 to 5, why it is so cool is because it's like, hey, you know what? Like I can do whatever, like whatever I please, or like I can try different things. I can try and move into different paths, and when you're not kind of held down into the corporate life, and again, like there's nothing wrong with that entire life, but it's really cool when it's like, hey, you know what? If an opportunity presents itself, then I am gonna try it. Like if it truly brings me joy, then like why not? Like, honestly, like time just keeps going. It's continuous.
Exactly.
And it's never like you're never ever as young as you are right now. And it's like if you don't try new things, like for instance with you, it's kind of like if you never picked up a camera, it's like where would you be today?
Yeah.
And it's like if you never sang, where would you be today? Like there's so many different things, and it's like who knows? Like you could have 10 different things that you've learned and became extremely good at in the remainder of your life, and it's insane what is actually possible when you kind of just allow yourself to believe it and allow yourself to see it, and it's just like, hey, you know what, if this makes me happy, then I want to do that, and if it doesn't, then it's like I'm not held to it, like nobody is pinning me down saying that you must do this, which I think a lot of people honestly kind of need to realize as well, is it's like you're never ever pinned down to anything. Like anything at any given time, you can just change.
You can just decide something else.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And like you were saying, like time doesn't stop. Like the planet's gonna spin whether you move with it or not. Like so it's just be open to like open yourself to ideas and opportunities, and say yes to things. And like if it scares you, or if it's like uncertain, or seems you're makes you kind of your adrenaline pump, like do it. Just go, and because you never know, and you never know until you try. And it's like if you never do it, you're never gonna know if you're gonna enjoy it or not. I always try to tell that, like I have friends who are like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna want to do this for a living or whatever, or a friend who will like get offered a job and they're like, I don't know if I want to do it. And like, just do it, and then like otherwise you're not gonna know. So we don't get a second go, not in this body in this lifetime, but like so just kind of just give her and enjoy yourself.
That's some inspiring stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Some people, I think you might have just inspired a lot of people to say yes and give some things a try. But honestly, I want to kind of dive into, like obviously as you talked about how you want to, like, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen from yourself is that you genuinely just want to impact people, and that's why, like you said, you want to help the Indigenous community, and you want to serve it right in some way. And it's obviously like some of that in in my eyes kind of like stems from a story, and that's like your story and maybe some of the things that you've been through. And do you want to kind of dive into obviously some of the past things that have maybe impacted you?
Yeah. So my one half of my family is Indigenous, and so I grew up with a bit of the bit of influence. We weren't fully in the culture and whatnot as a kid. My dad sort of he would make traditional food every now and then, or he would take us hunting with my grandfather and my uncle, Wyatt's dad, and stuff like that. So that's when I would be like tapped into it, when we were doing stuff like that. But as far as like everyday life and stuff, it wasn't as tapped in, but there was little bits and pieces sprinkled in. So I didn't actually know much, like a lot of the big stuff until I became like fully an adult and living on my own. That's when I sort of started really looking into it and whatnot. And over the past few years specifically, I really started getting into it more. And then, or last year and this year have been like definitely the most of like, as far as like the spreading awareness and the activism sort of stuff. I mean, obviously I was going out to that reserve and things like that, but really like being more vocal about it has been in the past few years specifically. And a large part of that has been just as I've learned more things, realizing like what maybe my grandfather had to go through as a kid, and growing up, and like other relatives, and I have cousins who and whatnot who I've gotten in touch with and met, and learned more about everything through there. And then I've become friends with a lot of people who are also very tapped in that sense. One of my really good friends, Dakota Bear, he's a activist, rapper, entrepreneur with a clothing brand as well. Him and I have gotten closer over the past little while, and just through the things that he's been doing, I've learned a lot as well. His clothing brand's called Decolonial Clothing Co. Or Clothing Co. or Clothing. I don't know if it has the co, but actually under here I have one of the sweaters.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So he's got lots of like different pieces and stuff, but this is one of the sweaters that he made. And anyways, so I think a large part of that is my grandpa, and just kind of as I learn more things about everything, sort of wanting to help in a way, or raise awareness and whatnot. And then my grandpa passed in February, and when he passed, I was sort of like, well, damn, like, there was a lot that I wanted to talk to him about that I just never got the chance to, because I was always, this is another part about like, just do it. There was this idea that I had where I wanted to photograph him. I wanted to make a bunch of like really intimate like portraits of him, and I wanted to do a whole story thing about a lot of his upbringing and the injustices that specifically he faced, and struggles and whatnot in his family, and with my dad even, and my uncle and my aunt. But and I had this whole idea, and we all thought we were going to have more time with him, and obviously we didn't. And so after that I was like, well, damn, I'm never going to get to do that project with him now. So I was like, well, what else? Like, what can I do to sort of honor that instead? And that's one reason why I really sort of really dived into it since then. Was, I mean, I was already going to anyway, but that kind of is sort of a driver behind it all now, because I'm just like, he's not here anymore. He can't, speak for himself. He can't, tell that story. So I want to help do that. Even like with the Truth and Reconciliation Day, just recently when they finally like made it a thing, I was on my road trip actually, it was the first day, I go on a yearly road trip, like through the Rockies. And it was the first day that I was going when that day was. And I made like a little video. I had one of the decolonial shirts on that just said Justice for Indigenous. Oops. And it was orange. And I just made a little video. Like I put my phone and I just went in the middle of the highway and I just played this, like, there's this indigenous singer sound that's on TikTok. It's a singer called Chubby Cree, and he's this like kid and he's amazing. Anyways, so I played that and I pretty much just kind of like ran back and you showed the view and whatever, you could see the shirt, and I brought up and I held the shirt. I didn't say anything in the video. I just wanted to show the shirt. And in the caption, I just put like, wish my grandpa could have been here to see this day, because I know it would have meant a lot to him. So just with stuff like that, yeah. And like I said, I have cousins and like my dad and uncle and aunts and stuff, and just other family, but also like my friends and stuff that I've met. Like there's so many people who, you know, you hear all these different stories and you see all these different things. And like when I went to the reserve, seeing the things that those kids there were going through, stuff like that. But I got in, was it August? End of August, I got to do something really, really cool. Dakota actually asked me to shoot. They were doing a all Indigenous festival in Vancouver called Circles Fest. And it was like music performers, speakers, stuff like that. But everything was Indigenous. Like all the booths, the merch booths that they had set up, the performers and everything. Like everything. And he asked me to photograph it. So I got to go and just shoot the whole day and just document that, which was really cool because it was like the first Indigenous-led festival in Vancouver. And the first one, they're gonna do it like yearly. And so that was really cool to be a part of and to be like asked to do. So I'm just stoked, like it goes back to helping with, you know, things like with photography. Like I can photograph this and I can document it, and that's helping because that's then gonna spread, you know, that information and those stories in those ways. So yeah, it's kind of all like, I guess, tied in together. So it's good. I love it.
I think like the one thing that I was kind of gaining from this, or like the one word that kind of came to my mind, was just community. And I think that's the biggest thing, is what, like, even another thing that I was thinking about was how there's, like, being an open-minded person, I think is so important. And just like, for me, one of the things that I always have like tried to do, and especially recently, like I'm just a very open-minded person, and I love hearing like these stories. Like I listen to those types of stories forever because I find it so interesting, and I find it's like that's something I don't know. Like, and I'd never be like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've seen that, because I haven't, and I'm not going to ever say anything on it. But I love to listen and learn, and I think that's why it is so cool to hear that you've been learning. And obviously, again, like, well, obviously, first and foremost, I feel so sorry for the loss of your grandpa. I know
thank you.
It hit your family pretty hard, and I think I just know that you are making a massive impact with like the projects that you are taking on, and obviously even just like learning about your culture and about all the things that you do want to learn. And it's very cool, and especially just you sharing that, and because again, it's like I get to learn this because you share it, and it's like that's a way that you impact somebody else. And because like me personally, I don't know enough about everything to ever give my opinion on it or to talk about it. But like I said, I love to hear it, because then it's like I can hear it from somebody else, and obviously it matters who you hear your information from. But it's great because then I like me and other people can obviously be like, oh, I understand a little bit, you know, and sometimes that's all it takes is a little bit, and then it sparks something within somebody to learn more. And maybe like be a part of that festival next year and join in on those things. Because I remember following along and watching you shoot that festival. And I was like, this looks so cool. Like what's going on? And I was so intrigued by it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of other people were as well. But it's really, really neat to hear you talk about that. And again, just wanting to make an impact within the community and being, in a sense, like, I don't want to use an influencer, but I have a lack of words right now.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
For like maybe even in a sense like an ambassador for you and your family history, and that's what again is just, it's really, really cool to hear that aspect of it.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And I know previously, like, you spoke about in the one small community that you did go to, and when you got to play music there, and you said, or one of the things that you did talk about was how there is kind of a large rate of suicide, or it's more common in those smaller communities. Like, how is that impacted you in your life? And is it like, for you, like, I know even recently you made a post that was, again, like, very, very impactful, and
Thanks,
one
man.
that definitely sparked conversation within a lot of people, and obviously even helped lead to this conversation today. And for you in your life, like, what has your journey been with that, and obviously, like, how have you been impacted by all of that?
Well, seeing, like, it sucks to see, you know, anybody feeling like that, but seeing, like, kids feel like that is almost worse, because kids don't necessarily have or feel like they have access to the help that maybe they need or they can get. And knowing how, like, I felt as a kid, if I felt sad, like, you don't know what to do. I know that you relate to that all too well, and you just, like, you don't know what to do. So knowing that, like, there were kids there that, you know, felt like that just sort of almost made me want to just help even more. And that's, again, why one of the many reasons why I said the thing about, like, doing social work with Indigenous youth, because there's just so many systemic things that happen that affect the youth so much, and just being able to help them and nourish them so that they can, you know, avoid that path and become whatever amazing things that they become would just be really, like, amazing to be a part of. So I think, yeah, just sort of seeing that made me really want to help even more. But as far as, like, in my own, you know, aspect, that was always, like, pretty separate from seeing that. But in my own thing, like, when I moved to Vancouver, I felt I was 18, or I just turned 18. I didn't know anybody, like, at all. And just kind of growing up in a smaller town, and then all of a sudden just being in a big city, not knowing anybody, not really knowing who you are. You're 18. Most people don't really know who they are when they're 18. You feel like all of a sudden just, like, what is going on? And, like, lost, and just it really hit me, like, way harder than I think I would have ever suspected it would. But then, you know, there's other little things that happen in life that, you know, little heartbreaks, or you lose friends or whatever. And because you're already feeling the way you are, those just sort of heighten it. And then you're already by yourself. You don't really have anybody to turn to there. And it just kind of snowballs. And so over probably from when I was, like, 18, which would have been 2011, to 2014, that, like, 3-year time period, I started drinking a lot, for the wrong reasons. And much like how you mentioned you did, pretty much similar. And I would just, you know, I would fill up a water bottle, and it wouldn't be water, and I would go for a walk somewhere and just, like, sit in a park and just, yeah. And anyways, for about 3 years, it was, like, pretty gnarly like that. And if I ever did go out like to a show or to play a show, to watch a show, to play a show, to do whatever, go out to the bar or club with friends or whatever, it would always be like excessive. Because, not because I didn't know when to stop, but because I was like, the reasons that I was drinking, I was just like, whatever, we're here, it's the alcohol is here, let's do it kind of thing. And it sucks because like there's lots of times where I remember specifically like I got close with, I'm not going to name the artist because this isn't about the clout, but there's an artist who I got not close but close-ish with, who started to do really well, a rapper, and he was at the time living in Vancouver. So there was multiple times where I would be out, say at one of his shows or at the club or something, and be hanging out, and I would just be gone. And I just think back and I'm like, I just don't want to think about the shit that I would have did or said, because I didn't know him well where he was like a close friend of mine, but I knew him well enough to be doing that around him, but also like I didn't know him well enough where like I wouldn't feel embarrassed if I did something stupid. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, does he fucking remember the shit that I did? He probably doesn't. He probably doesn't even think about it. But I do, and it fucks with me. So I'm like, you know, I think about that a lot, even now. And anyways, there's lots of times where I would go out and just, you know, excessive. And so in 2014, the girl who I ended up spending almost 5 years with, her and I were together for about a year at this point. And she had been really helping me, you know, get through that, and I slowed down a lot. And there was a point in 2014 where I was like, you know what, I have to stop. Like I have to stop drinking. I can't, because if I keep going, it's not gonna get better. It's just gonna get worse. So in 2014, I stopped drinking for good. So in August of this year, like just recently, I hit 7 years of like not drinking at all. So that was like a huge, but like during that, I was very much, there was times where I didn't want to live anymore. And that drinking was, in my mind, was gonna make me not feel that. We both know that's not the fucking case. So after I stopped drinking, I was like, maybe this will help, whatever. It did a little bit, and those thoughts, you know, fizzled, but every now and then, you know, made their appearances. And then for the most part, like from then until this year, it's been pretty like mellow. Like, yeah, I've had, you know, hard times or there's been moments or, you know, little kind of ruts here and there, but it was never as bad as it was then. And then this year, just with kind of my grandpa, and then I ended up finding out I had to leave the place that I had been living for 5 years, which was really stressful, to try to find a new place for me and the dogs that I have, by myself, because I also went through a breakup a little bit before that, like a few months prior to that. So then that was all kind of really stressful in the first bit of the year. I lost one of the reoccurring video jobs I had, which was like a large portion of my income. So that sort of stressed me out while trying to move. And then shortly after that, I went through like a really, really hard heartbreak, breakup that sort of just, I don't want to say these thoughts were because of that, because they weren't exclusively, but like just everything piling up. And I sort of felt like, okay, well, at least I have this still. And then when that happened, I was like, fuck. Like literally, when it rains, it pours. Yeah. Everything is just gone now, sort of thing, is how I felt. So after all of that stuff happened, I was very much in a place where I was like questioning, like, this comes back to the, you know, questioning photography, questioning everything I'm doing. And I was sort of just like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know, like, I don't feel like myself. I don't want to, I almost like quit my job and bought a van and just left. Like that, I was close to doing that. If I didn't have the dogs with me, I probably would have, at the time. And I was very much like, I don't know what the fuck. And then it just sort of kept getting worse, like the thoughts. And it got to a point where I was just like, I don't even know. Like, it wasn't necessarily like the same as how it was back before when it was like 2013-ish, where I was sad and I was like, I hate living. I don't want to live. It was more just at this point, it was like, I don't know if I really have like a purpose to be here anymore. And I was like, I don't really like feel like being here anymore. It was like it was almost like a more like, I would be content with just not being here anymore rather than the other type of thoughts. And that was scarier because I was like, I'm okay with it. And that's weird. And like, that is worse, I think, to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I was sitting there and I was like very close to being like, okay, how would I do it? How, what would it look like? Planning it out and shit. And I knew my road trip was coming up, like a few months. It was a few months away.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if I don't feel better by then, I'll do the road trip. It'll be one last like hurrah for my soul and my spirit in this body. I'll do the trip. I'll take photos. I'll leave those photos behind for whoever to, enjoy them, whatever. And we'll just call it a day. And by the time the road trip came, I was feeling like a little bit better, where I was like pretty sure that I wasn't feeling like that anymore. But I was like, I'm gonna go on this trip. I'm gonna see how I feel. I'm gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna see if, it goes to how you were talking about with traveling, where you were saying you didn't necessarily feel like while you're traveling, like you found yourself and all those things. I was more so like, I'm gonna go on this trip and see if I feel better, and if it reminds me like why I'm here. I'm gonna go on this trip and just make a bunch of photos and just focus on that, and just experience the world around me and remind myself like how beautiful of a place this is, and like you were saying, there's more that I need to do. And I was going into it with the mindset of like, I'm gonna try to remind myself of that. Coming out of it, succeeded in that. So it was an amazing trip, beautiful. The photos are some of my favorite photos I've ever made. And yeah, while I was on it, I just was thinking a lot about that. Like, there's way more that I need to accomplish, and there's more that I need to do for my grandpa's legacy, to tell that story, to help the youth, to, document whatever else I end up photographing in my life, to, meeting new people like yourself and stuff like that. And sort of just reminded myself of that, and it worked. So, I think it was just one of those ruts, but it was deep. It was a deep rut, and it lasted a lot longer than previous ones. And it felt different because 28-year-old me is not 23-year-old me, or 21-year-old me is not even close. So the way that I looked at the situations is massively different, which probably benefited me this time around, because if I was thinking about it back then like that, probably wouldn't have went the way that it did now. Yeah. So that was what that post was about. And I typed that out like a couple days before I shared it, and I sat on it and I was like, do I really want to like do this? Because I know it's going to open conversation. And like, I was like, do I really feel like talking about it? And I was like, I know I would to some people, but I know to some people I just like wouldn't. And I'm sure that you relate to that. You're just like, there's certain people where you're like, I really don't want to fucking talk to you about this. But when you asked me about it, because obviously I was familiar with your like videos and stuff, I wasn't familiar with this. I've been like very much like zoned out lately, and I just for some reason didn't even fucking know. I don't know what the fuck, so I apologize. But when you asked, I was like, I've seen your videos, I see the things that you say and do online and stuff like that, and actually on that note, it's really cool that you and Tessa, you guys are very similar, it seems like, and I've been following her for about the same time as I've been following you, and you guys both sort of, it seems like, advocate for similar things. I think that's really awesome. I think that's beautiful. so knowing that, and knowing like, you know, your heart's there, and your heart is very true to helping people and the things that you want to talk about and stuff. When you asked me, that's one of the reasons why I didn't even hesitate, because you can just tell, and you can like read people's energy, and you just know, you know, who's genuine and who's not. And that's another reason I think why we clicked so quickly and easily and seamlessly, was because we kind of just knew. And so yeah, like when I say, you know, I didn't want to talk about it to some people, like, you're not some people. I definitely was like stoked and that's another reason why it goes back to the whole like, just do it, because you never know. If I had not posted that, yeah, we probably would have connected. Yeah. But you maybe wouldn't have known the things that you know already, and you know, maybe it would have taken longer to connect or whatever, and it would have played out differently, which is maybe not a bad thing, but you know, it's cool that it sort of worked out the way it did because of a moment of super vulnerability. And I think that that's rad. I think more people need to do that, because the world, especially the internet, is a really fucking ugly place sometimes, but it can also not be. And you know, there's also like a lot of people who are very much in the same place, especially with the current situation of the world. Like, we're all in it. We're all in this together. And we're all kind of feeling these things, maybe not the exact same things, but similar things. And we're all just working through it, you know, together. And not to plug the stuff I'm doing, but I made a book about that last year, actually.
Really?
Yeah. To sort of document that, what I was just saying, basically. So it's very much, just, that's another reason why I just want to be vulnerable, so people know, like, I'm not the only one who feels like this. That's cool. And sometimes even just seeing somebody else talk about something is a nice moment of comfort for some people. Even if you don't talk to them about that, it's just nice to know that, to have that little reminder of like, you know, it's not just me. And I think that's helpful.
No, yeah, exactly. I think the biggest thing that you like in all of that is just the fact of being genuine. And I think, again, like, that's the main reason why I wanted to bring you on, is because you don't, like, I told you when you walked in, I was like, yeah, like, you're very much so like yourself, you know, and it's not that you're trying to be anybody, you don't, like, that's why like, me personally, I love when I see somebody that's doing something different, or that is just like themselves. And because, like, I personally always want to try and be myself, but I know that I lose myself sometimes, because I'm like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do, and okay, who's a role model? And it's like, sometimes you just got to be your own role model. You know, I think most of the time that's what we actually have to do, is be our own role model. And for me, just, again, like, when you posted that post and seeing you talk about that, immediately I related so much to it. And it was honestly the fact of feeling like, okay, you know what, like, I feel like I've, in a sense, like, served my purpose. And I think, like, there's always more that we can kind of do, or there's always like more that we can put out into the world, but it's also like, sometimes it can be a lot of the same stuff. And like, you like, I know sometimes for myself, I get into this point where I'm like, okay, you know what, like, I'm doing podcasts, and this is seriously not to take away from anybody's story, because every story is incredible and they are impacting so many people. But I'm like, myself, I'm like, okay, I'm doing podcasts. Is this what I want to do forever? Or like, is this, if I'm doing the same thing all the time, is that just like me just like going on, is like life just passing by, you know? Or same with like being like just making videos that I make, or just living life and doing things. It's like, is this really what I want to do forever? Or is there more to it, you know? Because if you're doing the similar things all the time, it's like sometimes that can just drown itself out, and you find yourself sitting there, and it's like, okay, like I've done this multiple times or dozens or hundreds of times. It's like, okay, like do I feel like I am still growing and expanding, or am I just kind of in this standstill where I'm just kind of repeating everything? And so like when I read your post, I was like, shit, like this, I just relate so much, because I know, like, honestly, there's been so many times when I've just kind of sat there and just been like, okay, yeah, like this is great. Like I'm doing a lot in the world, or I'm doing, like, it seems like I'm doing a lot. And it's like, but at the end of the day, like, have I kind of just like done my dues? And it's like, and that's like, it becomes a scary thought when you start to think about that, because I know there's sometimes I'm like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm just not gonna live for very long. Like that's just like a reoccurring thought that has occurred in the past, not as much anymore, but it definitely has, like it crept in, and it would always replay in my head. And I was like, you know what, like I feel like I have just served my purpose.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, though, that is when it becomes scary, because it's like it's part of the fun and part of the whole journey and adventure. Like that is the best part, is the journey and the adventure. And when you're figuring it out, or when things just work out, and it's like it got really scary there for a moment, but hey, it worked out. And that's when it becomes very, very cool. But it adds that extra sense of like question or second guessing when you feel like you've kind of done it or achieved it. And again, because like there always is more that you can do, there's always different things you can do, but when you do feel like you've served your purpose, that's when it becomes scary. And that's why, again, like when I was reading your post, it was just like, holy shit, like this guy is speaking to so many people right now. And I guarantee you, like for the people that did like reach out to you or comment on it, like kudos to them. But there was also like 100%, there was so many more people that read that and were just like, wow, this guy, like he is speaking my life right now.
It's amazing how many times, because every now and then I'll throw in a post like that. Like I try to keep my Instagram specifically, like very diverse, and I try to have a lot of variety in there. Because with my work, I don't want to just post one sort of type of photo. I want to show like, yo, I do a lot of different shit. But also because, you know, it's good to have every now and then just a moment of realness to just bring people back in, like, hey, you know, behind all these images, there's a person. Like, because a lot of the time it's not pictures of me. So every now and then I'll throw one in. You know, whenever I post a photo of me, it's usually with some sort of meaningful caption, whatever it's about. So every now and then I'll throw one up of me, and I'll have, you know, something in there. And it's amazing how many people, when I do that, reach out. There was one I did, actually it was probably about a year ago. No, it was like last December or something. It got like, I replied to everybody on it, but I think there's like 400 and something comments on the picture.
Wow.
I replied to everyone, so that means like 200 and something people commented, which was nuts. It was like, this one was amazing, you know, because obviously a lot of people commented, messaged me, whatever. I don't do it for that, but like when I posted that one and hundreds of people commented and messaged me, like I was replying to people for days, and like just it was quarantine, and I was living alone at the time. So what the fuck else was I doing? I was just sitting there on my phone. I was replying to people for days about it, and like so just knowing that, you know, it helps people, and that people feel connected with that, and people feel. I think the nicest feeling when I do stuff like that, and people comment or message me or whatever, is that the fact that people feel comfortable and safe enough to open up or to be like, hey, I relate to this, like, thank you. Because that takes a lot in itself. But to do that with somebody you don't, I mean, a lot of people I don't know personally. Some of them I do, some of them I don't. But to do that with somebody you maybe don't know personally is I think very telling of the person. So like knowing that people can feel safe or comfortable, you know, talking to me about that is a really nice feeling, and that's sort of something that I like, this sort of energy that I strive to bring anywhere I go, whether it's in person or on the internet. But anyways, that was a side thing. What I was trying to get at with what you were saying was it's really nice knowing that it's helping people and that people are relating to it, and because that's ultimately the reason I share it, because I want people to know, like, hey, you know, you're not alone with it, but also because I want to be like, I don't want to feel alone with this. Here it is, world, and hopefully somebody, you know, relates to it. So it's really nice. It's a nice feeling when people say something.
Definitely.
And when it even grows into something like this, like it's even nicer of a feeling. So it's pretty rad. I think people should be vulnerable more often. I think it benefits everyone.
Definitely. Yeah. I was actually going to say like a little bit earlier, but kind of just forgot about it, or like lost train of thought, or we got into a different conversation. But what I was going to say is, honestly, it's one of the best feelings ever when you can acknowledge that somebody is truly confiding in you. And I know, like, recently what I've been kind of doing is I'll like put out these polls, and just ones that kind of make people question things, and it really, I try to make them in a way that will allow or really present an opportunity for people to be vulnerable. And when I can tell that somebody is, or when they answer basically out of vulnerability, then I immediately like message them and just try and create a conversation. And the coolest part though is when I do that and I see people send me like a novel about what's going on in their life, and I read them, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I feel so fortunate, so lucky to be in that moment, because I get to obviously connect with somebody, but even more so, I get to really see a light of somebody that most people don't. And again, like, that's why I love doing this. That's why I love sitting and having these conversations, because I truly get to see, like, obviously I share them, so everybody else gets to see it, but like I am the one that gets to sit here and feel the I guess like the vibe in the air, and feel like the aura of the person, and I get to read the emotion, and I get to sit here and ponder and think and really experience it. And like that's what it's all about, is you get to experience somebody's stories and really get to like feel the pain that they've been through, and even honestly just feel all forms of emotions, which is again like so cool. And it even then it's just amazing, because you see people that will reach out to you over social media, and they'll confide in you, and they'll tell you something. And even like one of the things that I struggle with is really like feeling the emotion off of those things, and being like, okay, yeah, this is a real person that's telling me real struggles in their life. But when I get to sit here and talk with somebody face to face, I'm like, I feel every last emotion off of it, right?
Yeah.
But it still is like, obviously, when you can post something that somebody feels comfortable enough, or it speaks to them in such a great volume to where they feel comfortable enough to really show that vulnerable side of themselves, and even if it's just like a support, like just a support message, something like that, it's like, wow, you know what, like this person, obviously, like this is hitting a piece of them, and even though they're just saying like thank you for sharing this, it's like that's hitting a piece of them that maybe they wouldn't have acknowledged or thought about before you posted that. So it's like there's like, even coming back to the one thing that you said about social media, and it's like it can be such a negative place, but it also can work the opposite, and it can be such a great place where people obviously can be vulnerable, and they can share some amazing, incredible things and impact a lot of lives. And obviously, like, something that you've shown, and something that, like, I guess I've shown as well. And it's yeah, it's crazy what a simple post can do. And I think we always, like, for me anyways, I always fabricate it in my head, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm going to post this, and hopefully some people resonate with it or confide in me off of it. But at the end of the day, it's always just a matter of like showing that side of yourself, so then other people can just see that, hey, you know what, like if he can do it, then like why can't I? Or like if he can post something that is so vulnerable, then it's like the least I could do would be like message him or comment on it or something, you know, like it's just all the little things I think that can actually be tied into these posts that are the most impactful. But it's insane when you get down into the details of it all.
Yeah, it's amazing how, like, I was thinking about this. What was I thinking about this? I was thinking about it today because I was listening to the recent podcast episode. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head.
Pinero.
Yeah, that one. I was listening to that on the way here, and I was thinking about, because you mentioned how social media and how, like, our parents, I think you mentioned it, maybe he did, someone mentioned it, with social media, how our parents didn't have that, we have that. And it made me think, like, how on one hand it's made life harder for a lot of kids and a lot of people because of, you know, internet, whatever, feeling like they have to be a certain way, feeling like, you know, life has to be this or that. Also internet bullying, things like that. But on the other hand, it's been amazing because it brings so many people together, so many people. And most of the people that are in my life right now, currently, they had something to do with the internet, brought us together, which is insane to think about. But it's also, like, amazing how, like, you could, like, one of my best friends in the whole world, he lives in Australia. I've never met him in person, ever. His sister is an actress. She was on a show that I shot. There was an event, a fan convention event. The 100 was the show.
Okay.
And so I shot photos for this convention.
Oh, wow.
And his sister was there. I didn't know him yet. And anyways, shot event, whatever, photos. Met his sister, sort of became acquainted with his sister and her husband, who were both on the show. And then through them, him and I got in touch through the internet. And this was a couple years ago now. And we text almost every day. We FaceTime, you know, as much as we can. He's in Australia, so the time difference is bananas. But we FaceTime as much as we can. We voice message each other, whatever, text, all the time. And he's one of the closest people to me, and I've never met him in person. And it's like, without the internet, I would never know Pat. I would never know him. Well, maybe, but not like this.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's a lot of stories like that, I think, that a lot of people have. And so on one hand, the internet is a horrible place, but on the other hand, again, there's things like that where you can get brought in. And I was thinking about that when I heard the thing that you were mentioning and how it can help people like this, what you're doing right now. Like, people watch this on the internet, you know, like, and it's helping people. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Absolutely.
And I actually thought about this too, was, so the first ever video that I saw of yours was the one where you went on date, you took yourself on, like, self-date. That was the first ever video I saw of yours. And I can't remember when I saw it, but I saw it and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna fucking do that. And so I did. And I made not as in-depth of a video as you did, but I did it, and I made, like, a little, like, video thing for it. But that was how I, like, found you, and then I did that, and it sort of was the opening the door to me doing more things by myself, because I'm not somebody who typically likes, or up until recently, liked to do things by myself. A lot of it I liked to, like, share moments with people, experiences with people and stuff like that. But seeing that inspired me to do that. And without social media, who knows? Right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. I'm happy you actually shared that with me. I know, actually, it was literally yesterday. I was looking at that video and I was like, is this a video? Like, I don't even know. Like, you know how sometimes you just kind of start to second guess yourself and question yourself. And like, obviously I posted it quite a while ago. And for me, it was a really important video because, like I kind of stated at the beginning of the video, like I was just like kind of battling some mental health struggles, and it was a great way for me to prove to a lot of people that, hey, you know what, just because I do this platform, just because I am somebody who's like taking great care of myself, who's really tried to expand and learn and grow, and because I have done all those things, it's like it doesn't mean that I can't struggle still. Like it doesn't mean that you become invincible and that you just like, oh yeah, I'm great, you know, and I'm perfect. So it's like, no, like your mental health, it fluctuates, and it is like a big roller coaster.
For sure.
And for that video, like it was a great way for me to honestly like show somebody like yourself, or like give somebody like yourself that motivation, or even like a sense of courage, where it's like, hey, yeah, you know what, like I want to go do that, and then you like go and do it, and it's like because you've seen somebody else do it and somebody else enjoy it, and that's what I really was like wanting to do for people, was show them that, hey, you know what, like if you're ever struggling, you don't have to, like sometimes, yeah, it's great just to like sit in your bed and let yourself feel it, but other times you can kind of take action on it and just like go do something for yourself. And it was really cool because social media made that possible for me to share that experience with people. Like I could share it with the people that are surrounding me, but it's like I might share that with 10 people and they might go, like 2 of them might try it, and it's great. But if I can share that with thousands of people and they go try it, and it's like, hey, you never know how many people you actually impacted off of that, you know, and it's with everything. And that's why I find it funny, like I'm somebody who doesn't like to look at numbers, but when I do look at numbers, I look at it as people. And I think that's what a lot more people should kind of do, is wrap their head around the fact that, hey, you don't have 2,000 followers or 10,000 followers, you have 10,000 people that are following you. And it's like they're real people. And when you look at it as a big giant room, and it's like, okay, like imagine chucking all of those people into a room and realizing, and like, oh, now I'm having a bit of an analogy here, but like chucking all those people in a room and then you're standing on the stage and you realize that like all of them are actually there for you.
It's a crazy feeling.
It's absolutely insane.
Like, well,
it's mind-boggling.
It's amazing. I checked a video, was it this morning or last night? I think there's like almost 26,000 views on it, yours. So if you think about that, 26,000 people, there's no fucking way I'm the only person who tried it because of that. Not a chance. Not a chance. Who the fuck knows how many, and you know how many people saw that and they're like, I'm gonna do that. That's amazing. And like that's so dope. So, and like who, you know, they probably didn't tell you. I told you because I thought of it because we were doing this. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have even thought to tell you. And so it's like, you know, how many people went out and tried it because they saw that. You never know, but it's pretty cool to think about.
I think a lot, like one of the things, even just feeding off that, is a lot of people don't necessarily think about how big of an impact they can actually make on other people's lives, you know. And it's like a simple post or a simple video or just something that doesn't seem like a lot can actually like seriously change somebody's life. Like it can, and it's not saying that it's just like, it's just they're gonna watch the video and be like, my life is fixed, it's better, but it's like it might spark that within them, you know, spark that little fire under their ass where they're like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna try something for myself. Or like, you know what, I'm sick of feeling so down, I want to change something. Or maybe they hear your story or my story and they look at it and they're like, hey, you know what, like this guy whose life wasn't wasn't some like freaking movie the whole entire time, and it still isn't.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows, and it's like realizing that and looking at that and realizing like, hey, you know what? If I'm on rock bottom right now, it doesn't mean I'm going to stay here forever. And it also, if I'm feeling like I'm at the top of the freaking Mount Everest on emotions, it's like it doesn't mean I'm going to stay up there forever. It's like you are going to like go up and down and up and down and up and down. But it's like I always say is that like you need, obviously, and this is the biggest cliche saying ever, but like you need those low moments to experience those high moments.
For sure.
Because without them, like either one, like you wouldn't understand the difference. And it's like if you were always happy, you're not always happy because that's just like where you are.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that you're, I don't know, like I just think we all need to kind of realize that more and realize that, hey, you know what, like this is life and it's going to take its course. And obviously there's ways to really manage things. And honestly, it's not even necessarily managing, it's more so understanding. And I know that's been one of my biggest things that I've had to learn and experience is just like, you know what, some days I might get extremely anxious. And it's like, but I also know that throughout the day I'm going to talk to myself and we're going to have some good conversations, and I'm going to go up and down and up and down, and I know that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and it's probably going to be better. And I know that I'm going to learn and grow from that anxiety that I experienced, and I know that it's not going to determine whether I live or don't live. Like it's just like it's my life, and that's how it kind of always goes. But it's important that we feel those things because it just shows that we are always growing, and how you, like, I don't know if you're the same way or not, but what I've experienced and what I've noticed a lot is that now if like a struggle or like a confrontation or like conflict presents itself, I react in a totally different way than I usually would, or that I would have in like,
before
the past.
Yeah.
And so like now it's just, and that's when I find that I realize my growth the most is when these forms of conflict happen, and I'm just like, oh, I am a totally different person. Like obviously same morals, all that jazz, but like I do not respond in the exact same way that I used to. Like, do you find that for yourself?
Yeah, all the time now. Especially recently more so than normal. There was a thing last night where I won't talk about the whole thing right now, but this fucking guy started trying to argue with me on Facebook. Facebook, the place where you argue with people. I never like argue with people on the internet anymore. When I was younger, I used to love it. But this dude started arguing with me, and I was like, I should just leave this. I don't need to bother with this. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? So instead of like, he was like swearing at me and calling me names and shit. And instead of doing it back, I just started flirting with him. I was like, I'm just gonna flirt with him and see what he does. And man, it was the funniest thing ever. I had to make a TikTok about it. So I did, like the green screen where you put your face and you see the thing. So I did. I'm probably gonna delete it, but anyways, before I would have loved to go the route he was going.
Yeah.
I would have loved that more than anything. But lately, like in the past year, 2 years, I've been a lot more like, peace and love, baby. And just, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, like what is that gonna, that's not gonna help anybody. Me sitting here saying the shit you're saying to me, like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do this, then one of us is gonna block the other person, and then we're both gonna be fucking grumpy for the rest of the day. Like, it's not gonna help anybody. It's not doing shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just gonna make this a joke, and then let him just get mad and just like laugh about it. So I did.
Oh my
It was
God.
the best, man. I loved it. So I'm gonna do that more often, I think.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
But yeah, it was funny. So like, I have noticed that. Yeah.
That is awesome. And do you, like, I was going to ask you, and just because like I've been picking up on things and it's like you got gems and stuff, and are you like into like the spiritual all the spiritual stuff?
Yeah, I have like friends who are very into it.
Yeah.
And then I have friends who like aren't at all.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty like, you know, those like those things where it's like agree, somewhat agree, strongly agree. I'm like in the like strongly agree area. So like
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like pretty in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I also just like really like accessories and stuff. I always have.
Yeah.
But because I like crystals and stones and whatnot so much, and like owls, like I don't know, I just like this type of stuff. Plus, some of these are like made by, like my friends made this thumb one this middle finger one. Actually, my friends. So I have a friend. She's named Maria. She has a jewelry company called Sea of Light Collection, and she makes like stuff with crystals and stones and whatnot.
Sweet.
And they just started doing silver, like silver stuff.
Yeah.
Her and her partner Hugo. So they made me this thumb one, and they made me this finger one. And Hugo's brand is this. He makes like clothes where he takes fabrics or, you know, whatever, different old clothes and stuff, cuts them up, whatever, takes the fabrics, sews different pieces together and stuff. So this one is like a couple jerseys that he like attached together.
Yeah.
And then he put his thing, and on the back, I'll show you after, but on the back there's like a huge patch he made of this like monkey drinking out of a bottle. Like it's like a National Geographic photo. And he made like a patch to look like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, they do that kind of stuff. So like stuff like that I like to wear, like where it's like handmade. Like another person very close to me made this one and this one for me. Maria made this. So yeah, a lot of it is like stuff that like people I know have made. And I like that a lot. And like actually the one who the person very close to me who made these rings made this earring for me.
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Which I love. Yeah, I love it so much. Maria made this one. So yeah, it's a lot of just like stuff that people I love made, and I just love wearing that. And my friends' watch company, like just stuff like that. I just love wearing stuff. I don't know. I love all of it. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool that today on here I'm wearing so much of like my friends' things, like the hoodie, the jersey, all this stuff. I'm just noticing that right now because you said that. I'm like, oh shit, I'm like just
head to toe.
All in my friend's stuff. It's cool.
That is so awesome.
And I thrifted this from my friend's thrift store. No, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, no, I love it. I'm very much into the spiritual world. I actually just got this tattoo like a couple months ago, Universe.
Oh, that's sweet.
But like YOU universe. So this actually ties into a lot of like the stuff that you say. It's very much like, you know, your universe. It's your universe.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously we're all existing in one big universe, but I don't know if you've probably have noticed this, but you know how when you look at like pictures of space and stuff, how it's very similar to the nervous system and the brain and things like that.
Yeah.
That's sort of where this comes from, is like because of those similarities. It's like I sort of was thinking, and I was like, you know, like our mind and body and soul is its own universe, and we're not in control of anything outside of that at all, mostly. That we are in control of everything within this body and mind and soul, and most of the time. And so that's kind of where this came from. I just wanted to get this to like remind myself. This was at the peak of those thoughts recently, where I wanted to sort of remind myself like, yo, like this is you. You're in charge, you're in control, like, you know, whatever happens, it's you. Like remember that. So that's kind of where that came from. So yeah, the whole spiritual
Kind
stuff.
of want to copy it.
Give her, bro. Give her.
No, that's sweet. It's funny that you bring that up, because throughout when you first like arrived, I noticed it, and I was like, damn, that's cool, but I didn't know what it said. And I was like, and then during this, I was like, kept like trying to peek without being too obvious. So I'm glad you showed me that. But
Thanks, man.
it's really neat when you just the way you look at that, because like I totally agree. Like obviously,
I figured you would.
Like I personally, like again, it comes back to like the open-mindedness, but like I 100% like in my past I used to judge I will say, like, I used to judge like the gems and like people. I was like, oh my gosh,
this
like,
is fucking magic.
These people are just like out to lunch. And then I started like kind of being more open to it, and Tessa actually really opened my mind up to it.
Nice, cool.
And like super into it, and she just like all the time she'll chuck out signs, and I'm like, oh my god, like you are like just so funny. But it no, like I just started becoming like open-minded to it, and then I started to find my, like the other day I found myself in a store. It's like just open, like, but I was just like, like I started just loving lighting incense. In my like, and it just it, like when I went traveling, that's all I smelled for so long, you know, like just being in like Southeast Asia.
The places you were, of course.
And so like all the time. And so I just remember like, and then at her house every day, like, just like her room would always smell like it. And I was like, okay. I was like, if like I don't know, I just started becoming like a fan of it. And I was like, okay, well, then we like went out one day and bought like a bunch of incense and just started lighting them like every single night. And it just like draws me back to those moments.
Nice.
What is really cool is that I've just like, I feel like I've almost like expanded my mind and just like opened it up in so many different ways, and just learning more. And we actually, like, her and I actually had this conversation the other day about how basically how like I would always like kind of envy these like super successful people, like I'm going to use air quotes, like successful people, because they have a lot of money in their bank accounts, and they're like, you know, they're the higher ups on social media, and they're being like, they're giving all these motivational speeches, and then we were having this conversation, and it was like, what we realized is who you really want to be like is just those like the spiritual people, you know, like they've almost just figured it out. Like they have this healthy balance where it's like, you know what, they're successful people, they're doing great things, but they're also just like living. And that's what's beautiful. And when you can like tune into your universe, like as your tattoo, right? But it's like when you can really tune into that, and you can align yourself with what you believe, and also just being very open and being very like free spirited and free willing, it's so much cooler, and it's way better than going into it with the mentality of like, I must win, or like I must succeed, because it's like, well, success is identified in so many different ways, and like honestly I think it's identified in 7 billion different ways, and that's because like everyone's success looks different. And everyone, like, no two people are ever gonna feel success in the same way. And I like just learning the little bits that I have about kind of like the spiritual world, I think has been such like an eye-opening thing. And that's why like I am like, it's funny because, and honestly, like in the past, again, like I wouldn't have been like, I'd wear like rings and jewelry or like gems, like all that stuff. But it's like now I'm like, literally the other day I was like, went searching for a ring that had like spiritual ties to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm just a changing human being. But it's cool. And same thing, like I look at you, and like when you walked in, and I was like this guy's got sweet style. And
thanks,
it's
man.
but it's just funny because again, like I think it always is kind of like maybe in a sense like our upbringing, but also how we kind of transform and who we kind of choose to become. And it's really cool when you can just obviously be open to everything and hear people out, and hearing you say that, and obviously seeing that like you're wearing like 99% of the stuff you got on is all from loved ones. And I think that's, again, it's like you're connected in a different sense, which is really cool.
Thanks, man. That's the thing about like being human, is like, you know, we never stop growing. Physically maybe, but mentally and emotionally we never stop growing. So it's like, you know, maybe a year ago you could have thought something was the dumbest thing in the world, but then now you could be absolutely in love with it. And like, yeah, I was the same about, you know, people with stones and crystals and spirituality and everything like that, where I was like, because I didn't get it and I didn't understand it, and I didn't bother to ask somebody who was about it and be like, you know, explain this to me so I can know what the fuck you're talking about. And I mean, I'm not a religious person by any means, but it's sort of similar to religion in a sense where, you know, people, religion, you know, in a nutshell is people believing in something.
Exactly.
What the fuck is spirituality? People believing in something. People are just believing in different things.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like, as much as I used to knock religion and everything, I just don't say shit anymore because like, I believe in something that other people don't believe in.
Yeah.
And so who am I to say, you know, what this person believes in? It's not my place.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can listen and learn and whatnot. So I think it's cool that you're, you know, listening and learning and trying to, you know, learn about it. And it's really cool when people you're close with teach you about it, because you get to see people be excited about something. Like knowing, I mean, I don't know Tessa, but like seeing her energy on the internet, I'm sure her energy in person is probably similar.
Yeah.
And just like imagining, you know, her being excited to show you things and tell you about it and teach you about it, it probably makes you excited to learn about it.
Exactly.
And I mean, that was a big part of this year was learning about this sort of stuff through people that I'm close with and getting excited about it because I see them excited about it. And so it's nice to do that. And it's always fun to learn new things and sort of, open your mind to new things. So this year especially, I've been like really just going for it, but I love it. So it's cool.
So I literally, like, that was one of the things I was going to say too, is like with religion, it's the exact same, you know? And honestly, like one of the biggest things that I've really tried to do is just ask and understand people, you know, and understand like where their belief comes from, you know, because like it's one thing to be like, I'm religious, because like some people do, they're like, like I'm religious, but they don't necessarily, like, themselves don't even have a grasp on like what it means, you know. It's just kind of like, my family's religious, so like I'm religious.
I fell into it.
But like what I find really cool is when somebody is super passionate about it and they believe in it. And that's why, like, personally, I've gotten to have some really cool conversations with people that once weren't religious or once didn't have a belief and then transformed and found a belief and found something to believe in. And it's like, I will always have the time of day to listen to those people talk because they're just going to teach me something. And it's like, I might not agree 100% or I might not understand 100%, but if I can just sit there and listen and learn something, then I'm just expanding. Like, and that's all it is. Like, I'm like, who knows? Like, 2 years from now, I might have, like, I don't know what I'm gonna, like, what I'm gonna look like or what I'm gonna believe in 2 years. But it's like, the more conversations that I have, the more that I ask people, the more that I learn, the more open-minded that I am to something. It's like, well, I can never steer myself wrong because all I'm doing is just adding more things to my like learnt list, I guess, or like lessons learned.
Much like the big universe always expanding, you know, it comes back to your universe. It's always expanding. You're always learning stuff. You never know when you're gonna need to use that random fact you learned 5 years ago. You need it randomly in 20 years. You're like, you know what? I learned this once when I was like 10. Like, fun, cool, thanks. Like, you know, you never know, and it's cool. It's cool. I love learning new things, and I love listening to people tell their story or talk about something that they're excited about or anything like that. So I agree, it's super cool. Yeah,
and it makes it so much easier to learn something or even just be open to it. Like, I know like, oh my God, people that are gonna listen to this, you're like, oh my God, this girl changed the man. But like, so it was funny. Like, I used to be, I will say, like, I used to love eating steaks, being like fully just like I am a meat eater and I will never change my paths. And I literally, when I found out that Tess was vegan, I was like, this is never gonna work. Like literally, I and like obviously I was joking, but I was like, oh, well, and I told her, I was like, you're never ever gonna change me. I will stick to eating steaks and meat like all the time. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
But that was just like me and my ways, and it was like a week in, and I was like, okay, well, I just won't like, if you're eating vegan, then like I'll eat vegan with you, you know, like out of respect. And anyways, like for a while, I was still like very closed-minded. I like went open-minded about it, and now it's like, I'm like almost at like 3 months being a vegetarian.
No way,
which
dude.
is like
That's awesome.
Weird. And like honestly, like 95% plant-based. Like the only time, like I will never deliberately like grab cheese and throw it in something, like nothing like that. Like everything that I eat is like, if I am buying it, it is vegan or like plant-based. But the odd time, like I'll eat something that might have been like something will get made with like butter. And then it's like, well, that's just like, it's in there, but it's not like I'm deliberately being like, okay, I'll put cheese on my like, I don't know, like on this meal when it's like, it doesn't, I wouldn't like that, you know? And it's just, it's so funny because again, like I said, I've never ever thought that. And like, right now, like I'm definitely in the transition of just becoming like fully vegan.
That's amazing.
And it's just like figuring it all out and just kind of like taking my time with it, because I have been, like, it's funny because like I really want to make a post about this, just like expressing it to people. But like all of those runs that I did those like 100%, obviously like 100% vegetarian and like, again, like 95% plant-based. Like, and honestly, on those races, like, or on the runs and on all that stuff, like everything I ate was plant-based. And so it's just like, it's really funny because for a lot of people, they would look at it and be like, oh, he must have, you know, must have cheated a bit or whatever. And it's like, no, like I literally, that's just what I believed in, what I wanted to do. And it was funny because like, it was not probably the smartest thing, just like going fully, like diving myself fully into that right out of the gate, especially with like doing something that was so taxing on my body and not understanding how I would adapt or anything. But like, I'm really happy that I did do it because it proved to me that like, hey, you don't need meat when you're on this journey. Like you don't need to fuel yourself with things that aren't like, that you don't necessarily align with. And it's just like, it's really cool when you can obviously share that with people and do that. But
that's amazing. That's awesome, dude. I'm stoked for you. I've been vegan for just over 3 years now. So I'm stoked for you because I remember like I was vegetarian for 3 months before going vegan.
Really?
So,
Oh God. So maybe this happened for a reason.
Right? So I just remember like the exact, and I went vegan because I started dating this girl who was vegan, and she just helped me show me that, you know, there's cool stuff that's vegan. And then I just was like, all right, fuck it, I'm already halfway there. So it's funny that like that you're in that exact spot that I was at the time. So I remember like how it was at the time. But man, that's awesome. I'm stoked for you, and I'm glad that you like feel like hopefully good. I noticed like because of my heart stuff, I do heart checkups and tests and stuff every year, and since going vegan, my results have actually gotten better.
Awesome.
And the doctors are like, you're not supposed to be getting better. You're supposed to be getting worse because we're supposed to do another surgery soon. And I'm like, joke's on you. I don't know. So it's cool. I'm glad that you're feeling good because if you do it, and I don't do it properly, I eat like the garbage vegan food. like not most of the time. It's not the healthy stuff. But I assume, you know, you're a little better about that than I am, so you're probably doing well.
I wouldn't say like too much better, but you know, trying. Even just like confidence-wise for myself, I feel better because I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, because everyone else in my family is not like, they all eat meat, they cook meat around me, like, and it doesn't bother me at all, you know, like, because for me it was like, obviously you start to open up your mind of like, what is the meat? Like what's actually, like what are we eating when we intake it? But for me, it honestly was more so just about like my overall physical health, and just again, just kind of like being shown that there is another way and there's a healthier way, and it's so funny because for me, for so long, I had this misconception that these foods, like the meats and the dairy products and everything, they always taste better. And the biggest one, and I will say this for a lot of people, is like dairy-free ice cream as opposed to dairy ice cream. And for me, I just remember like I cold cutted like milk out of my diet back in January. So I just like I was like health thing, and so I was like, okay, like just started getting into the dairy-free ice cream, and when I started doing that, I was like, this tastes incredible.
You can't even tell.
No,
Yeah.
I was like, where was I?
Yeah.
Like, why did I think that it tasted different before? And honestly, again, it's just like that's just what I was kind of. I think I was just like taught, or not even taught, but I was just kind of always in the realm of people that like that's how they thought, and they were very very close-minded to other options in different ways. And even still, like most of the people that are in my life, and a lot of them are like older people, but it's like if I was like, yeah, I'm vegan, like most of them would be like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? But it's like, no, there's different ways, and it's cool though because like, and this is a cool way, but of course just gonna rant about the woman, but she like Tessa honestly just like opened up so many avenues, not only for myself but also for my family. Like just she's kind of, and like subconsciously too, has just like paved the path where it's allowed like my brother and my mom and my dad just to be like open-minded about, or even just like see that, hey, you know what, like vegan food tastes great, and it doesn't matter that it's not like there's not meat and there's not dairy, like any of that stuff, like it can taste equally as good or better. And I know that there was like meals that they've eaten like with us and stuff, and they're just like, oh my God, like this is incredible. And it's like exactly like that's the point, and that's why like what is the point of not being vegan, you know? And so like, and that's what's cool again is just like there's so many different ways to look at it. And I know that there's a lot of I don't even know what the, like, I guess closed-minded people, but they'll just never even like ponder the thought of trying it or like what it might do. And obviously there's some great role models and people and influencers that will show you that there's another way, and that you can like still do everything. Like it doesn't take away from things you can do or what you can't, like it doesn't change who you are at all, you know, but it can really help you in so many different ways.
For sure, it can be amazing, especially for people with health issues. It can really help.
As proven.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad.
Before we do wrap up this whole entire podcast, so I want to ask you, and this is obviously my classic typical question, what is your biggest tip of advice for somebody who may be struggling?
So I thought about this a lot on the way here because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna say this. And I think the thing that kept coming back to me when I was trying to think of what I would say is what I tell myself, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about like the world's gonna keep spinning. Like the planet is gonna keep moving, whether you lay in bed all day and sit in the darkness, or whether you get up out of bed, get in your car, get on a bus, walk somewhere, and go do something for yourself to try to feel better. The world's still gonna spin, the sun's gonna rise, the sun's gonna set, regardless of what you do. So for me, it's thinking about that and realizing like, hey, like kind of what you were saying, like I have more to do. I know I have more to do. I have more that I gotta accomplish. I got more to be proud of. I got more to you know, more people to meet, more things to say, all of that. So why, I mean, obviously it's way easier said than done some days, but for the most part, I'll sit there and I'll just say, so like, why the fuck am I sitting here wasting these seconds? Because these seconds aren't coming back. Like, you know, and it's like the longer I sit here in this darkness, that's time I could be using to feel better, or to go out and do something to feel better, or even to sit in the darkness, journal, write about it. Like, I don't know, do something. And so for me, it's sort of just reminding myself that, like, hey, you have more to do, you have more to accomplish, you have more, all this stuff. Fucking do it. And so it's less, I guess, advice and more like stuff of like what I remind myself. And it may not help everybody, it may only help a few people, but that's kind of what I kept coming back to. And sort of the thing that I tell myself the most is it's hard when you have to sit there and like tell yourself stuff and remind yourself, especially when you're feeling, the way that you can feel. But that's usually what helps me the most. I'm just like, yo, look at all the stuff you've done so far. Fucking add to that. Like, the list doesn't need to end.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Oh yeah. That's so awesome. Honestly, I can just relate to that so much. And just because, like, although and like as you said earlier, although like life might look great on the outside, and like you might be having a lot of success in what you're doing, and you might be doing a lot of great things, it's like you can still have those moments when you get down on yourself, and you are going to sit there and you're going to wonder, like, where do I go? What do I do? And if you can obviously feed yourself something like that, and it honestly is just like a sense of motivation, and it's not meant to be like rude to yourself in any which way, but it's just like, hey, like right now, if and honestly, this is funny, I've taken this into my life a lot, is like, I can either, you're always posed with the choice, and it's like, you can either like let these thoughts or let these negative emotions like ruin your whole entire day and maybe fizzle into tomorrow and the next, or you can physically just choose to like say fuck that and reroute it, and just be like, no, like today's going to be a good day. I'm going to make sure of it because I'm going to do something that is good. And like at the start you might not feel that way, and that's the biggest thing that I've acknowledged too, is like sometimes you have to physically like push yourself past that point and like past that discomfort, and you might want to sit in those emotions and feel all the sorrow in the world. But it's like, if you actually just like go out and do something that you know will make you happy, it's like you honestly might not feel happy in that moment, but it's going to start to create a form of happiness at least. And you're going to, like, I don't know, like we can basically like learn to forget things so fast. And it's like, as easily as we can latch onto a negative thought, we can also let one go. As hard as it does seem, it's like, it is possible, but you also have to just feed positivity into your life and do something else. And even just that, like realizing that, hey, like you can sit here for as long as you want, but the world's not going to stop spinning. You're
going to have to get up at some point.
Exactly.
You're going to have to get up and get moving at some point. Why not now?
Yeah.
And so it's obviously, that's hard. It's not easy. Some days I think that and I'm like, fuck you, Devan. Shut up. I'm not doing that today. Like, but obviously, it's hard. But if you can tell yourself that, and if you can convince yourself that, I promise it works. Like, you'll even just for 5 minutes feel better, and that's better than 0 minutes.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So, yeah, you nailed it. If somebody wants to kind of like reach out to you, or obviously just follow along you and everything that you're doing, where could they go?
Shot by Devan everywhere. Shot by and then DEVAN. Anywhere on the interweb. Yeah, pretty easy. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, honestly, like I thank you obviously so much for driving out here and sitting down with me, and it's lining it up so fast, being able to do this so fast. Like it was awesome and so incredible to formally meet you and bring you on and hear your story.
Long overdue. So I'm stoked, man. I'm honored, and I just think it's really cool that, like, we've been brought together when we were, and that we're able to do this, and I just think it's rad. I think we were meant to meet and become homies and build and see each other grow and all of that. I think it's super dope. So I'm honored. I'm stoked.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Struggle Creates Strength, and I hope that you enjoyed Devan's story. I know it's a crazy one and it's an awesome one, and me just being able to sit down with him and learn so much about him, learn his core values, learn what he practices every day, and learn who he truly is was nothing but an honor for myself. I'm very blessed and very happy that I got to make this happen, and just super fortunate that he sat down with me. And if you do want to reach out to him or have some form of conversation, I will leave all of the ways that you can reach him below, and I highly suggest that you do. He is, like I said, and like I always preach, he is such an amazing, kind human who honestly just wants to help other people and wants to be kind and spread love and spread kindness. So I highly encourage you reach out to him. And if you do want to reach out to me or potentially come on the podcast, you're more than welcome to at Struggle Creates Strength on both Instagram and Facebook, or you can also reach me on my website at strugglecreatesstrength.com. And if you want to use one of the two emails, you can also do that. And it's just lucas@strugglecreatesstrength.ca or info@strugglecreatesstrength.ca. Every single way that you want to reach me or try to reach me, I'm sure I will see it. So never hesitate. And even if it's just a matter of you just want to have a conversation, then I'm always open for that. And if you do want to learn where you can listen to all the podcasts or find new ways that you can listen, they are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and additional posts are also on Instagram. And that is a mouthful, but I seriously do appreciate all of you for sitting down, listening to this story, listening to Devan. He obviously has an amazing story and one that can help a lot of people. So again, thank you for that. And all I ask of you is just to share the stories. Share any story that you want, but just share it with people. Allow people to basically just get the opportunity to help themselves. These stories are real people sharing their real experiences and real struggles, and it truly does help people. The feedback I get from it is insane, and I'm very appreciative for all of you that are listening. I just cannot harp on it enough how important it is to share all of these, oh my gosh, my voice, all of these stories, because it makes a massive difference, and you truly never know who you might be helping. It might be the person that's sitting next to you, it might be somebody in your family, or it might be a stranger that just happens to follow you or hear you talking. So please do share this in every which way that you see possible or that you want to. But again, just the little things make the biggest difference, and you never know who you might be helping. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you can join us next week with another fun episode. Thanks so much. And I guess we'll see you next week.